It's hard not to fall into the trap of cultural colonialism, but I am an outsider, and that's the first thing I needed to understand.
It's 39 minutes past 8 o'clock. You are watching My Cultural Divide. It's a new documentary about the exploitation of cheap labor in the garment industry by large corporations. It is political, but it is also personal. Filmmaker, director Faisal Lutchmedial accompanied his mother to Bangladesh and his family roots. This film is screening at this year's Montreal World Film Festival. Welcome, Faisal Lutchmedial.
Good morning.
I'm sorry I said your name wrong at the beginning, even though I
right.
practiced. Let's talk first. I mean, it's interesting politically on so many levels, but let's talk first about the personal journey. You accompanied your mother. What made you decide to do that?
Well, my mother has Parkinson's disease, as you've seen in the film, and it's really difficult for her to get around. And so she told me, oh, I want to go back to Bangladesh. I want to see her mother, who is still there. And it made me think, oh, I've never been to Bangladesh before, so I should take her, show her around the country, and make it a nice trip for both of us, and really rediscover my roots there.
And just visit a couple of sweatshops along the way? I mean, where did that part come in?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I started thinking about going to Bangladesh, what I realized is that the only thing that I really did know about Bangladesh was all the statistics and about globalization and economics, all the things that I'd studied being an activist. And there really was a divide between the knowledge that I had about the politics and the knowledge that I had about the culture. And so I wanted to start researching both of them and go to the country and really find out what it was like on the ground, what it was like there in Bangladesh. So that's kind of where it started from.
And did what you find surprise you?
It did. I went in trying to have an open mind. I mean, I obviously have my own feelings that I came from being a Montrealer, a Canadian, somebody coming from a Western society. Going into that country and seeing what I did, there were a lot of things that surprised me, and a lot of opinions of the people who were in Bangladesh that surprised me. Feelings of the Western activists sometimes drastically are different than the feelings of the activist who is on the
actually working
ground.
With the garment workers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Of course, one of the most some of the most shocking images in the film are those of the child laborers, particularly in that shoe factory.
Right.
Did you encounter a lot of child labor?
Well, there is, and you know, the thing is about Bangladesh, and you have to contextualize it a little bit. In Bangladesh, children work pretty much doing everything. There's children working, I mean, there's children working for my family.
Well, there's that great shot of that guy bringing in your heavy suitcases.
Exactly.
And he's like 10 years old.
And I felt terrible.
Yeah,
I saw him
standing there.
walking there, and I didn't know exactly what to do. I just got into the country, and this 10-year-old's carrying my bags, and so I, of course, volunteered to get up and help him. And what I had to really come to terms with is that they are working all in the country, and then if they weren't working in certain jobs, if they were taken away from those jobs, they'd be put in even worse jobs. So it's a really complex issue. You don't want children to be working in factories, but the alternative sometimes is even worse. So you had to kind of talk about that.
We're almost out of time, but I just want to ask you a quick question about you approach the whole film as a conscientious consumer. So what's a conscientious consumer to do? What kind of choices do we have?
Well, there are some alternatives for people who want to buy ethically, and there's companies like American Apparel, No Sweat Apparel, and Adbusters makes a running shoe. So there's companies that are trying to work on a different paradigm where the workers are being treated well. What I talk about in the documentary, though, is that that's only part of a solution. There's so many other solutions politically that we can do that would help sweatshops. And that's one part for a certain amount of people who can afford to pay those prices for extra, for that kind of benefit to your heart. But otherwise, you know, there's lots of other things that people can do.
All right. Well, if people are interested in finding out more, of course, your film is being screened at the Montreal World Film Festival. And I will tell you that Dov Charney, who you interview, he is, of course, the CEO of American Apparel, is worth the price of admission. He's very funny. I've been speaking with Faisal Lutchmedial. He's the director of My Cultural Divide.